Hello everyone, I am Bradley Sward, Associate Professor of Computer and Information Science at the College of DuPage in Glen Ellyn, Illinois. And this video is basically a hello world, or just basically an introduction to the drag and drop interface of GameMaker Studio 2.3. And we're just going to create a simple menu. We're not going to include any bells and whistles. We're just going to pretty much hard code a menu into existence. So the only thing I have going for me right now is I have Visual Studio, GameMaker Studio version 2.3 open. And so again, there have been some changes to GameMaker Studio. So even if you're used to GameMaker, some of these things take a little getting used to. So you'll see, and there's a couple bugs that were introduced in this version that maybe you'll see and maybe you won't as we push forward through these video lectures. So just be careful with everything. So they say if this is your first time with GameMaker, you go, my goodness, there's a lot of stuff going on even here on the screen. This is the asset folder here, or the asset window. This is where you're going to put all of the resources of your game, all the assets that your game are going to use. And so the only thing that comes for free is a room. So if I hit F5 or I click, I like F5 because I don't have to go over here and press any buttons or click anything. And so you run, and you have the most boring game ever. At least you have something going. The game will run. This is my window, and I'm ready to move forward from there. And I'm going to change the name of this. You can just go over to an F2, and I'm going to call it Main Menu Room. And you can call it kind of whatever you want, but I recommend, especially if you're sticking around and following along with me, just until you're used to things, just name them exactly what I'm naming them. And so I'm going to go in, double click, and again, if this is your first time using GameMaker, everything is going to look new and scary as any other IDE and any other system does. But once you get used to it, you'll see that there's only 3 or 4 different types of window systems here, and different types of assets that we play with on the general basis. And so the only thing I'm in here for the room right now, I want to change the graphical settings here, the width and height. I am going to make this 1280 by 720, which is otherwise known as 720p resolution. Okay, so, and that changes the window. And now if I run this, maybe you notice it, maybe you didn't, or will or won't, but now now everything looks a lot more 16:9, when it comes to the aspect ratio of the screen. Okay, so let's create some sprites for this thing. Let's so usually the train of thought here when you're working on stuff is you create your sprites, you create your objects that work with the sprites, then you place the objects in the room, and then in my case, then you start worrying about their interactions, about how they're gonna, what you're gonna do with the things. So a lot of times just getting something going is tricky, and then sometimes it's once you have it working, getting it to work better is the tricky part. But it all depends on what you're trying to do. Okay, so if I'm going to create a sprite, I'm just going to create a background sprite. And so I'm going to call this main menu background, SPR. And I'm going to change this using this setting here. I'm going to resize the canvas because it's background. It's going to be my full image, so 1280 by 720. And this brings up a lot of stuff. We'll talk about this over time, not everything in one instant. There's a lot going on. We generally only use the collision mask, and for some whatever reason, there's a bug in here where the collision mask doesn't agree with the changing of the sizes, and I don't know. Maybe that's the new thought process, is I have to physically go in there, but that's not how things have been in the past. But anyway, if you double click, where do you double click anywhere? Double click here. Yep, there we go. This will bring up the actual window. And this is basically a paint editor. If you're Microsoft MS Paint or anything like that, it's tricky because they don't give you a giant window to work from, which is fine. I mean, if you're an artist, you are not usually working in GameMaker anyway, and you're just using this as maybe like a couple touch-ups or something, or maybe not. And so anyway, so I want to make this. I'm going to be making, this is part 1 technically of a two-part video series where we're going to be making like a slide puzzle, because that's just kind of like my hello world when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to create a very basic menu And again, you are pretty much free to change this up and make this as nice as you want. This is not the moment for me to teach you all the aspects of how the editor works. If you're familiar with Paint or Photoshop or any other system, you kind of know already, and you know how limited this system is compared to the cool stuff you can do in those other tools. Because this thing is not, they want it to be as cool as all the other big tools, but it really isn't. So I'm just gonna go in here real quick and just change my font to just anything. I'm gonna Gravy regular 100, and I'm just gonna call this Slide Puzzle. Ooh, look at that. Oops, it doesn't. That size does not work. 90, sure. All right, and again, my job right now is not to make this thing look nice. I'm just here to teach you functionality. So Slide Puzzle, yeah, I got that going for me. If you want to center it, I'm not gonna worry, and I'm just gonna bring this down to 10-point font. And then just go copyright Bradley Sward 2020. That's my name. Don't wear it out. Okay, so, and if you really want to, you can go like this and try to center. And if you really want to center, you could take your time and go down to the pixels with it. Like, no, I'm not worried about all this. Go down to the pixel level with everything. I'm just moving stuff around just to have it. That looks cool. Okay, then I just use the fill tool to fill in, oops, wrong blue, to fill in everything that I've been doing. And there looks, and that's pretty much it for a background image. And so Slide Puzzle, again, if you really wanted to, you could have fun with it. So now what we're going to do is create two buttons. We're going to create a quit game button, and we're going to create a button for going to the actual, the room where the puzzle is, where we can do this stuff. And that's where we're going to differentiate between this video and the gameplay video. Okay, so that's it for this. And so I'm going to create a new Sprite. And this is going to be quit game button, SPR. And so those of you new to this, I put underscore SPR at the end of every sprite. I put underscore room at the end of every room. I do this for every resource type except for the objects themselves, because in GameMaker, every object type and every asset has to have a unique name. That's pretty much how it works. And if and GameMaker does its best to try to avoid, and it will warn you, and it won't let you create the same name twice, but whatever, right? So you got, just remember, and that's why I do things the way I do things. It's my conventional way of doing things. And I don't know, I can never know the size of things. Let's see. What does this thing look like in real size? Yeah, I mean, that's okay. I'm not going to go, again, if you want to go down to the pixel level, you feel free to. I chose 450 by 125 for the size of my buttons, and this is what it looks like in real size. Okay, so I'm going to create, actually, I'm going to go ahead and rename this, and I'm going to say off Sprite. You'll see why in a second here. Quit game button, off Sprite. Okay, and then I can go in here, and what I can do here is, since I've been using that blue, I'm going to go ahead and blue, and then I've been using yellow. I'm just going to create a quick and dirty border. Right, and have some fun with it. Okay, so there's the border for it, and here's my graphic. And so what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to put some text in here. I'll keep the Ravy style, and I'll just say quit. Wrong size. Let's see, bring it back up to 90. Is that too big? I don't know. Let's find out. Oops. Undo, undo, undo. There we go. Bring this. Oh, just trying to get it so it, there we go. Oh boy, maybe it is too big. No, maybe not. Okay. I'll bring it down to 80 and try to get it in. There we go. And then I can drag this thing over. And don't be so worried about it. I'm not going to make it perfect. I'm just making it good enough for right now. Okay, and then go back in and fill in. Okay, so there is my quit game button off. And so since we're here, we're going to have two states for each of the buttons that I'm going to show you. I'm going to have the normal state, which is the off state, and then I'm going to have like a mouse over state, so it'll just basically flip the colors. It'll be yellow with blue background if I mouse over the thing, so it goes back between the two. so I know which one has been selected. And so if you want to, you could duplicate this and create this and call this the on sprite. Mouse over, mouse not over, whatever, however you want to go ahead and do it. And inside of here, go, okay, here. So I can't just swap colors because there's aliasing going on. You see the colors here? It's not just pure yellow and pure blue. Now there are, there's gradients to this. So you can't really just go ahead and just say turn the yellow to a different color, which is unfortunate. So so first thing I got to do here is get rid of this quit. And if you know anything, if you've been watching my other videos, you know that there's other ways to do this, but this is just to get you acclimated with the graphic system. And this, so a lot of this we're hard coding just on purpose, just to have some fun with this kind of stuff. And I'm going to swap the colors out. So blue becomes yellow, and yellow becomes blue. Go. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking of there. And then with the blue color, I need to go ahead now and put the same text back in. And there we go. And then again, the tricky part would be to make sure that it lines up exactly where it was in the previous video or the previous graphic. So find something here and just say, okay, the first pixel of this, the first yellow pixel is at, oh, well, let me in here. This is what I meant to do. You go. The first yellow pixel is at 69,51. And I go into here and I go, okay, the first blue pixel is at 7154. And I've already talked to myself. I already forgot because I'm thinking and talking and doing. $69.51. I think that's what I said before. And if not, oh well, I'm just going to go on and move on with my life. Because you just don't want it to, it's going to flicker a little bit, but you don't want the wording to flicker too, because then it's just a little off-putting. It doesn't look right if you don't do things this way. Uh-oh. There we go. So here's my on button. Here's my off button. There you go. And then here is my on button. And we don't have to worry about centering or anything in our first video here, so don't worry about any other settings. We might have to worry about the collision mask. Maybe, maybe not, depending. Actually, we do. At least in my case, I have to come back in here. I don't know why the resizing doesn't affect the collision mask, but I do have to go in and manually fix this up and say what are the bounds? Where can I click on this thing? Because right now it says just this one pixel up here. And so I need to fix this up with 449 and 124 because it needs to be the full image. And for some reason, saying full image doesn't make it work. So 0 to 449 and 0 to 124 because that's the size of my settings. And so that's all I need for the graphics for what we're doing right now, for the quit game button anyway. And so let's go ahead and put everything in and make it work. Right? I think we're done with this kind of stuff. And then you can go ahead and I'll show you how to do the other button, but I won't do it with you. I'll leave that as an exercise for you guys. Okay, so here we go. So here's our setting. And so now what's cool about this is I don't have to create a graphic for the background. I can there's different layers. You will have experience with different layers, different instance layers, different background layers. And again, when this first came out, I'm like, why do we need this? But it's really cool to have so that your computer system doesn't have to spend time sorting which objects get drawn in which layers and which objects get drawn before other objects and so forth and so on. So you have to go into the background layer and then you say, well, which sprite? And you go, well, how about the main menu sprite? And there it is. As long as your graphic is the same size as your room, it'll look perfect, and it does. There's my slide puzzle. There's my copyright information. I can get rid of that. I wonder what it'll look like what it'll look like when I run it. Well, let's see. That's not the best font for small size, but that's okay. Oh, it doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look terrible. If you didn't know my name, you wouldn't know what that read as. But there is my game. And now let's talk about putting an actual object in the room. And I do this all the time. Then I forget to go back into the instances layer because you can only put backgrounds in a background layer and you can only put objects in an instance layer. And there are other layers, which you see here, pathing layers and tile layers and all sorts of other cool stuff that you can go with here. Okay, so I want to put this object in the room, and so I'm going to put oh, we don't have an object. Oh no, right? So we have sprites, but sprites do not directly apply. So you can't just, the only way you can drag sprites in, I believe, is in a background layer. Can you? Nope, can't even do that. So, oops, oh, I guess you can. But I don't want to do that. These things need to have code running behind them, event-driven architecture running behind them to make them work. So I need to go ahead, create a new object. And so again, a whole nother menu system for you to get acclimated with if this is brand new to you. And I'm just going to call this the quit game button. And that's it. Again, it has a unique name. And the reason why I don't put OBJ anywhere on this thing is because when you go to write GameMaker language code or just programming code, you're going to be just the tediousness of having to put that in there just gets too much. So I just leave it as is. And it needs to use the off sprite. Okay. And everything else can stay the same for now. And now that I have an object created, even though it has no behavior associated with it, it truly is an object. And I can go ahead now, go back into my room, and I can drag the object in. Oops. I accidentally created an assets layer while I was doing this. I have no idea how. I was just trying to talk and I wasn't paying attention. But in the instances layer, I can go ahead and drag in the quit button. And if you put the grid back on, you see that it'll move everything nicely. If I want this centered, well, if I want this perfectly centered, let me just show you a quick little thing here. At least in this case, this isn't always, but I can go into the sprites and I can go ahead and over here do middle center for the way that the object is centered. This is my pivot point, my rotation point. And if I do that for both sprites and I go back into my room now, say like what did I change here? But if I go ahead into my grid settings and I go, okay, set my grid settings to 640, which is half the screen, you will now see that everything is centered horizontally. I don't know if you hear that, but the workers are here on my house. So I didn't realize they just got here, but there's my quit game button. And so if I run this, you will see there it is. And now there's no code running behind this, which is fine. But so let's get this quit game button to have some functionality, and then basically the video is over because I'll show you how to make the second stuff here. Okay, so in the quit game button, since we're using different sprites, we don't need a create event. Like, what are these events? My goodness, add event. Look at all this cool stuff. Create event, destroy event, step events, alarms, draws. Don't get freaked out. Keyboard, mouse, gestures, collisions. Don't get freaked out. We will introduce these slowly over time. You will get used to the way things work. But what I want to have is a mouse enter and mouse leave, because I want to change the graphic depending on what's going on. And so if I go mouse enter, you're like, okay, I want to change the sprite that's being drawn, because we showed that we have the, like the off sprite and the on sprite. And you get used to this, the toolbox over here in the drag and drop environment, and you go set sprite, looks like little Pac-Man. Drag it in, and you go, well, I want to change it to the on sprite. Which one's, it's hard to see such a small thing. So set the sprite to on. And now you'll see, let me make sure I run the game. Oops. Okay, so now you can see the game running, and I go over to here, and there it goes. It changed. There's no code to bring it back, though, and now it's stuck in that on state forever. But as you can imagine, if I do a mouse leave state, I can set the sprite back to the regular one, the off sprite. And now we're done. And now we can try it out here. You go, watch out. It's not, yes, if you're careful for your eyes, though. If this is something that's sensitive to you, sometimes it gets sensitive to me, but it takes a while. But you see, I set up everything perfectly. I aligned my graphics perfectly so that the word quit doesn't shift around when I go off to on. And so the last thing to do is to have something to click the quit button and call it a day. And what you would do with that is you do mouse, left pressed, and then like you have to get used to all this stuff. Exit, this, that, whatever. I am looking for, I don't know what I can never remember because it's named differently in code as it is in drag and drop. It's game end in code, exit game in drag and drop. So these are all events, right? Like if the mouse ends up, the first frame the mouse goes into the sprite, it'll change the sprite, and the first moment you leave the sprite, it'll change it back. And when I press inside the bounds of that sprite, this left pressed means inside the sprite, and click, I'll end the game. So my menu is done. So boom, boom, quit. Okay. And so that's all there is to that, which is pretty cool, right? Now we have a working menu system. So I will leave you with the task of creating the second button, but let me just show you here just to get you kind of going into part 2, is that I'm going to create a new room called Puzzle Room, because again, part 2 is going to be a slide puzzle. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I change the graphical settings to 720p to match the other room, the 720p of the main menu. Okay, and I'm not going to do anything with it. I just have it existing right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the quit game button. And I'm going to, instead of being a quit game button, I'm going to say play puzzle button. And the only real difference here, mouse enter and mouse leave, they're the same, right? I mean, at least right now they're the same. What you're going to do is change the graphic. And on left pressed, instead of exiting game, what I'm going to do is find room events here and say go to room. And I say go to room's puzzle room. And you do all this, and then the first thing everyone, including me, forgets to do is to put the object in the room. Because you'll run the game, you're like, why isn't it there? Why isn't it working? And you're like, oh, duh. I did not put anything in there. And so go back into my main menu room, and I can put the play puzzle. And it's going to be tricky for right now since the two buttons are identical. At least when graphically the two buttons are identical. Oh, what the heck, I'll do the whole thing with you. Okay, so then here's quit game. This one quits the game, right? And then the other one will go ahead and actually change over to the other room. There we go. And so let's work it through for repetition's sake here. So what I want to do then is, the only thing I got to do is change these sprites. So quit will be a play. So I can duplicate this guy. Duplicate. And so this one will be called play puzzle button. And let's go, oops, well, naming, I'm going to be anal about it. Okay, I'll go in here, fix this up, and now edit this so that, make sure I do everything right here when it comes to text. 80-point Ravy, okay, good. So what I want to go ahead and just make sure I eliminate the word quit, replace it with the word play. Oops, need it to be yellow. Go. Oops, what the heck is going on here? Undo, undo. Oops, oh my goodness, what in the world? Oh well, here we go. Oops, oh my goodness, I'm undoing everything. Okay, here we go. Now maybe this will work now. Text, play. Okay, go ahead and try to center this thing a little better. And again, I'm not going for perfection for this round. It's good enough for what I need. I just know that I'm just going to use this purely yellow pixel at 42, 32, and I'm writing it down right now just so that I can get it where I need to get it. And so I'm going to do the same thing here with the quit game button. I'm going to duplicate this because the on section, and I'm going to make this the play puzzle button. Okay, go ahead, go in here, and do the exact same but opposite colors. And just go ahead and get rid of that, bring in the text, put in the word play, drag this thing over so that the first major blue pixel is at 4232. And that should do it when it comes to fixing this up. And then I just have to go ahead and fill in everything that got moved in the process. And now I believe I have the play game button in the correct stuff. And the final step, 25 minutes into this video, is to go into the object, make sure I change the correct graphic settings. Oops, make sure I'm in the right object. Play puzzle. Change the sprite to be the introductory, or the initial sprite is play off, and then inside of here change this to be play on, and change this to be play off. And again, like with this, if you go slowly, you will know if things are wrong. Like if you go little piece by piece by piece. So here's quit game, quit game quits, just like it does, but like it was supposed to. And then now the play game button, back and forth, look at that, oh, look how nice that looks. I can click, and now I have my room set up, and this is all of part 2. We'll be filling in and making a puzzle. I'm gonna find some spicy meme that's gonna be out of date in a matter of minutes after I post it, but I'm gonna go find something fun, and we'll find a graphic in the next video. But that pretty much covers setting up a menu system the hard way, I'll say, because right now, again, we've baked in the graphics, and other videos show you how to use fonts and how to use text so that if you want to change things, it doesn't take you minutes or more than minutes, like hours even sometimes, to change how the button looks, because you just want to change what the wording is. Because for my students, your homework assignment is going to have many buttons, and you do not want to be spending many hours just setting up and just the look and feel of a button, when we can just write some code and you can have it done in mere seconds rather than hours, right? That's my job as a programmer, is to make your life easy as a designer and an artist and make it all work together. And so when you eventually change your mind on things, it doesn't take days of work to change up whatever is going on. But there we go. We have a slide puzzle main menu. We are ready to push forward. I am happy with this. I love the blue and yellow color when it comes to just basic stuff to get going. And it looks good enough to me. So as always, swardb@cod.edu is a great way of getting a hold of me if you have questions about anything we do in any of my videos, my 100-something videos. Oh yes, I have 200 subscribers as of today when I'm making this video, September 23rd, 2020. 200 people like me. How nice. But anyway, swardb@cod.edu is a great way of getting hold of me, or comments below. Let me know what you think. Try to be nice. I'm a person too. I'm not making money off this. I'm just trying to make life helpful, give you guys some useful information about the topics that I cover in my videos. So please be nice. But otherwise, thanks for sticking with it. Please come on to the next video and I'll show you how to create a graphical slide puzzle. We'll have a lot of fun. See you there. Bye-bye.